But just as we wrapping up with the final question, you were talking about off mic, using racial terms and talking about how you're glad what happened to his family. Mike Tyson.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll edit out you just dropping the N word so that people don't hear it. Mike Tyson has a podcast called Hot Boxing. I think it more should be called Dutch Oven. It's not good, I think is the most polite way to say it. He quite recently did an episode with Ric Flair, wrestling legend. Ric Flair.
I love Ric Flair. Legend.
So you need to hear that episode because if you listen in the background, you can hear the wheels crash and turn in the rain. It's fucking horrible.
Woo!
Yeah, he doesn't know. Tyson doesn't know who the fuck he is. He's completely stoned. His co-host is trying to interview Ric Flair. Ric Flair won't even make eye contact with black people that aren't celebrities because, you know, he's from Georgia. But so the question is, do you think that Mike Tyson is someone you would want to risk messing with on WATP?
Fuck yeah. That's a great idea, actually. We should definitely do Mike Tyson's podcast. I'll do that.
Fuck, well then, while we're stirring the shit, what about Joe Rogan? Do you think you would ever go after Joe Rogan's podcast? And if not, why? And if so, when?
Okay, great question. So Joe Rogan, I've been listening to for many, many years. I'm a fan of his show. I don't listen to every episode, but I check in from time to time. And when he has an interesting guest or a good comedian, I'll listen to his show. The problem with doing Joe Rogan's show is there are some things about his show, you know, Jamie showing the videos, turning everything into a talk about jiu-jitsu and like this certain things that he does that get on my nerves, get on everybody's nerves. But there's so much content. Every episode's 3 hours long. These deep discussions that are going on. It's hard to pull clips and really fairly analyze his show. It's like one of my favorite podcasts is the show called No Agenda. And No Agenda has been a favorite of mine for many, many years. Their shows run 3 to 3.5 hours long, every single episode. They go through all these different segments. They pull all these clips from the news media. They do this analysis on it. I wouldn't be able to review their show. There's too much to talk. Like, I wouldn't know where to begin. And maybe it's because I'm too familiar with it. Maybe I'm better off. I would have gone into Joe Rogan, like, give me 2 episodes and let's talk about this. Maybe that would be interesting, but I don't know. I know too much about it, I guess, or something.
Well, I think that Joe Rogan really, really stinks at his job. And the fact that he has that money, I'm not jealous at all that he gets 100.
What do you mean he stinks at his job? So this is something that Opie always says too. Opie's like, oh, you guys like Joe Rogan just because he's the popular guy in podcasting? You don't think I could do exactly what he does? I don't think anyone could do what Joe Rogan does. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Do I think he's the world's greatest stand-up? No, not even close. But he's very good at what he does on the podcast because he's able to have conversations with people from all different walks of life and have intelligent, meaningful conversations. During COVID, he was the only one having people on who were saying, hey, you know what? There are other remedies for this besides just this vaccine. And, you know, maybe everything the CDC is saying isn't necessarily true. And maybe Fauci's full of shit. And he was having these deep conversations with these scientists and these physicians who were coming on his show. But at the same time, he could talk about MMA, he could talk about comedy, he could talk about nutrition, hunting. I mean, the guy's very well-rounded and has very deep and honest conversations. And he does his research. He comes into it. He talks to an author. He's read the book. He knows what he's talking about. You don't hear that enough anymore. Like, Mark Maron's not going to be bothered to fucking read a book before an interview. He's just going to have you on, be bored with you for an hour, and then put it out as a show.
I'd rather hear Opie interview some M. Night Shyamalan right in the middle of the street.